I'm excited. I'm ready to go. So without further ado, let's really break down everything you need to know about the top 5 wholesaling real estate markets. So without further ado, I got some honorable mentions I'll give to you guys too, but let's kind of get into the top 5 and not waste anyone's time. So let's get into it. So number 5 here, this is going to be Dayton, Ohio. And this is in a market that sounds sexy, right? But what I could tell you in Dayton, Ohio is there are a lot of cheap properties. And when I look at 2023, cheaper properties are going to win. All right. The value of those homes actually go down relatively less than a higher value property, right? And because there's a lot of older working class neighborhoods in Dayton, Ohio, it's actually poised for wholesaling real estate success. So I could tell a lot of people out here, Dayton, Ohio is an amazing market. And I could call this part of the Cincinnati region too. Nobody ever talks about in a wholesaling real estate space, especially on the social media space, about Dayton, Ohio, or the Cincinnati region, or like Kentucky's there, Indiana's there, that whole southwestern part of Ohio. It's an amazing part, right? Everyone talks about Columbus, but why about Columbus where it's not saturated? That is what Dayton, Ohio is. I absolutely love Dayton, Ohio. Call it Montgomery County, Ohio, right? Like Miami, Ohio region, right? So if you look at Montgomery County, Ohio, it's a huge population, guys. The population here, I just want everyone to know like what area I'm talking about here. So I'll go share my screen really quick. Hold on. Let me just show you guys what I'm talking about here. But right here is Montgomery County. So this is where I'm talking about. About 500,000 people live in this little area right here. You got Dayton, right? You got Huber Heights, Trottville, right? You got Germantown, Miamisburg. It's a good area. Then you got Franklin, Middletown, Monroe, and these don't even count. And then boom, you're right here in Cincinnati, which is huge, right? But like this little region right here, you got Columbus. This is where all the wholesalers are. And I want everybody to understand this. Columbus is actually one of the best wholesaling markets out there. It's just extremely saturated. So many virtual wholesalers do really, really well here. But what I want you guys to understand about when I'm looking at this market, you see how big and nice Columbus is, and this is one of the best ones. Look how big Dayton is. Like Dayton's a smaller size, but they're so much cheaper, right? And it's actually relatively really big size. And they got Cincinnati, which is massive. So you pull all the cash buyers from here into here. You have Indianapolis, which is actually one of the best wholesaling markets ever. You got squeezed in 2 amazing markets, and then everyone talks about this market and this market, but nobody ever talks about this one. And this is absolutely amazing. It's a great market to be going after. You got Cincinnati here too, which is still a really good market. But like in between here, right? Amazing, guys. So this is definitely something I recommend a lot of people be going after. It's really good, right? And yes, there's some more expensive areas, but what I can tell you is there's a lot of cheap houses you get for $30,000, $40,000, and it's amazing, guys. So let's go to the median home price so everyone can know. We're going to go to the active ones right now. So Dayton, Ohio, this will be very surprising for people. It's got a huge population. And you look here on Zillow, and then you go on Zillow here, the median home price in Dayton is $113,000. So it's like you got a high population, you have a very low ARV. And in 2023, when you want to deal with sellers that are actually wanting to get rid of a property and they're actually reasonable in prices, like this is going to be a really good market for that, right? And prices haven't moved as much as like Phoenix or LA, like going down, but it's going to start going down like that, right? This is Dayton, you get the areas around it, but guys, it's an amazing market. There's so many cheap properties here. And I think it's not really a talked about market too much. And it's absolutely amazing. So number 5 here is going to be Dayton, Ohio. No one talks about it, but it's an amazing market and something I do highly recommend for if you're getting a virtual wholesaling, right? And now a lot of people find it sexy, so they don't like doing it, right? But I can tell you it's a great market. So if you're in that market, let me know in the comments if you're interested in knowing more about that market. We could talk about it, but definitely a really good one. There's a ton of cash buyers there. You got all these crazy metros. Hedge funds like them too. So yeah, that's definitely a really good one. So let's go to number 4 here. Number 4 is one I've talked about forever, right? But this is just Detroit, Michigan, right? And not specifically Detroit, but Wayne County in particular. So I can go here to basically Detroit, Michigan, median home price, right? And Detroit's got about 600,000 in it. Wayne County is going to be Wayne County population. So Wayne County's population is about 1.7 million, which is like insane, right? And what I want to tell you is when I say Detroit, I don't mean Detroit. What do I mean by that? What I mean by Detroit is, I'm going to share my screen right here. So this is Wayne County, right? This is actually Canada right here, which is kind of crazy that Canada can be south of Detroit, but it's true. When I say Detroit, I don't mean Detroit. So you got like Detroit here, right? Like you could wholesale there, but like we're talking some of these like outskirt regions, right? You got Canton, you got Wayne, you got Inkster, right? You got some other areas that are actually not bad, right? And if I get out of here, right, in Wayne County, got Livonia, Plymouth, like you see these areas too. Now these are a little more expensive areas right here, but like these outskirt areas are actually really good. And Ann Arbor's decent, right? But like these are little outskirt territories, but they're actually really good for wholesaling real estate. And ironically, the best place to actually be wholesaling in Canada is right by Detroit, right? This whole is this Windsor? Yeah, Windsor. This is actually the best area of Detroit because in Canada because it's kind of like Detroit. So it's kind of funny to see, but the populations are completely different from there. But you sort of look at here, it's like, wow, this is actually working really well, right? And then you look at other parts of Michigan, right? Lansing's really good. Grand Rapids is amazing. A little smaller here. Fort Wayne's a good market. Toledo's decent, right? You kind of look at these little markets right here, but Detroit's massive, right? And what I could tell you is, I mean, you even got Cleveland over here, which is even bigger. But like, you look at, actually, I think Detroit's bigger, but like you get this general area, and then you look at the median home price, right? So I go on Zillow here. I look at the median home price. You got millions of people in this county, and you got a median home price of $69,000. Like that's ridiculous, right? Like that's ridiculously low. And it's super cheap, right? Now there's some there's some higher crime areas that properties are really cheap, but you can still pick up really good wholesaling deals for 25, 30 grand. And they're not like in high crime areas. They're just in regular working class neighborhoods, and it's cheap real estate, right? So you got cheap real estate. You got a ton of people in here, a ton of cash buyers. It's an absolute amazing thing to do. And I think so many wholesalers out here refuse to do this market. And a lot of people are like, oh, no, you don't tell anyone about this market. We got to keep this a secret. Oh, no. Blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you the truth. There's 1.7 million people here, okay? This is like 3 Dayton, Ohio's. Like, just everyone understand, there could be hundreds of wholesalers in here, right? And honestly, everyone could still make money, right? There's plenty of food at the table. It's like you go into Thanksgiving dinner and you're like, oh my gosh, no one else here can eat except for me. It's like there's plenty, like you will not be able to eat all the food on the Thanksgiving plate. You will not be able to. Let the 30 other people eat some food too, okay? Like when I go to Thanksgiving, I want to eat everything, right? Like TMI for my Thanksgiving dinner, we have like 4 pumpkin pies. I can't eat 4 pumpkin pies. Probably got 4 or 5 slices in me if I'm really hungry. If I run like 10 miles that day, I can probably put 4 in, right? I can't eat 4 pumpkin pies, but 4 slices I can. So a lot of people complain like, oh my gosh, don't, shit, it's a secret market. I'm trying to give the people, and this is the thing the gurus don't understand. I'm trying to give the people the power. And this is a shocking thing gurus don't like talking about. And this is a statement I love, but power to the people. If I give people the knowledge, the power for them to actually make a change in their life, their destiny, people start making a lot more money. It just helps everyone out here have the same advantage as everybody else. Everybody can eat, okay? You have a huge Thanksgiving feast, which is Detroit, huge population. All right, we can all eat. All right, guys, we can all eat. Don't act like you can eat all of Detroit. You can't get all these deals. You actually probably won't even be capable of doing that. I can't be capable of it, right? And heck, it's not crazy, right? So many millionaires in Detroit in wholesaling, and you can be another one, right? So it just, property values are so cheap. So if you're coming out here and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in Los Angeles, I'm in this crazy market in San Francisco, everything's just so expensive. The average house is $900,000 or $1.4 million. And they got Detroit for like $70,000, right? Like super cheap. And that's the average. We're going to get below the average, right? We're going after properties $40,000, $50,000. And these are little sleepy Midwest towns. Not sleepy. Detroit's huge, but like y'all just got to understand that. Like it's not, and rent's really cheap there too. So like you got a lot of great landlords. It's an amazing market and definitely something I highly recommend. It's an amazing market. So I recommend you guys just go to like a map and look at the map of the areas I talk about and go to the surrounding ones too. It's like, it's a big secret, but like so I want everybody to know the secret. So I'm giving you another secret here. And this is kind of what I talked about before, right? So I go to Wayne County, right? And it's like everybody hears Detroit and they only do Detroit, right? When you should be doing Livonia, Red Ship Charter, Plymouth, Can't, like all these little areas too. So like I'm going on a map here. We got Cleveland, right? If you want to do good in Cleveland, don't just do Cleveland, right? Dude, Middleburg Heights, Westlake, like all these areas around here, it's actually going to be a lot better, right? You got Akron, right? Like everyone avoids Akron, go after Akron, right? And then we'll go back to like Dayton, like I told you here. And like everybody only goes after Dayton. And honestly, like, let me show you this. So everyone goes after Dayton only. And you look Dayton, like the area around, it's not that like insanely huge, right? It's not that massive. But if you just do Detroit, Dayton right here, you're avoiding Fort McKinley and Trotwood and Fairborn and hint, hint, hint. I always tell everybody, hey guys, if there is a military base near here, it's usually a decent real estate wholesaling market for virtual, right? And guess where there's a military base? In Dayton, Ohio. So I'm just letting everybody know, like, got Beaver Creek. I think that's more expensive over there, but like, you got all these areas around here that are actually pretty good, right? So I'm recommending everybody, like, look at the surrounding markets. It's actually going to be really, really good for you and actually going to give you a lot of great results. Yeah, I think Akron's very similar. Just what I could say is Akron doesn't have the population of Dayton, so it's okay, right? But yeah, definitely add Dayton in there, right? Nebraska's up like crazy, but Nebraska's still a good market. I didn't put it on this list, but if you do Lincoln or Omaha, amazing market. Highly recommend it. I know a lot of virtual wholesalers doing well there, so it's definitely a really good market. Number 3, Macon, Georgia, guys. Do you see the theme I'm putting for 2023 for the top markets for virtual and then just regular in person? This is cheap property. Cheap property is going to win in 2023. Your cash buyers are going to flock to flip properties that are cheaper because when a property is cheaper, let me just like give you guys a quick calculator example. And I don't want to bore you with examples, but I just want to explain to you why cheap markets are really good for virtual wholesaling, especially now in 2023. So this kind of trickles down to who we sell our deals to, right? And in wholesaling real estate, who do we sell our wholesaling deals to, right? Think about it. Who do we sell our deals to? We sell our deals to cash buyers. So I want you guys to understand this. Let me share my screen really quick to show you why cheap properties are important. And so you can understand why they're important for you so you understand it, right? I want you guys to understand why I'm not going after these crazy expensive markets. And I think a lot of you guys out here can sort of understand where I'm at here, but let me show you here. Is this working? There we go. All right. So if I look here in wholesaling real estate, I look at my market, right? So I'm right here. So if I go here and I look to, I sell my deals to cash buyers, right? So I think of cash buyers. And that's going to be priority probably number 1 for 2023, right? Priority number 1 is going to be cash buyers, right? So how do these cash buyers make money, right? Like what do they want? So what do they want? Pretty simple, right? They want money. Money, 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 money. They care about money, right? Money is very important to them. That's why they're being cash buyers, because they want to make a ton of money. So how do cash buyers make money? They make money in 2 ways, all right? They make money way number 1 and way number 2. Number 1, they like to fix and flip the property. Fix and flip. Pretty simple, right? They buy your ugly house, they renovate it, and then they sell it for a profit. That's a good thing to do. Or number 2, they like to rent it out. So I want you guys to understand this. For cash buyers, what do they want? They want to fix and flip, and they want to rent it out. So let's talk about fix and flipping first. If I'm going to fix and flip a property, let's think of the regular real estate wholesaling market, okay? So let me get my amortization calculator out. I don't want to confuse y'all, but I just want everyone to have the knowledge of what to do. So if I have a property, and let's say the average property I'm fix and flipping is $300,000, okay? If I look at a if I look at a person that's going to buy and fix and flip, if let's say last year I was buying it at 3%, okay, a $300,000 house. So if I get 300,000, let's just put no down payment. We're just going to make this like really simple at 3%. Roughly where we're going to be at with PMI and all this stuff. Our average payment, if I look at everything, so let's just do monthly principal and interest. Okay. Like we're not adding tax or anything. It's going to cost me like $1,265 at roughly 3%. Okay. Now, these aren't perfect numbers, but if I'm fixing and flipping a property, let's say I buy it at 250,000, right? And I put some money into it. Maybe I add 20K in repairs. So I'm in it at 270 and I sell it for 300. I mean, maybe you buy it at like, let's say you buy it at 200. All right. You buy it at 200 and then you put 30K in repairs, right? And then overall you're in at 230. That's how the regular market works, right? Here's the issue with 2023. Interest rates are at like 7% and they're shooting up and they're shooting down, right? 30-year mortgage, I think I saw it at 7. Let's see here. I think right. Let's just call it 7. I know it's a little higher, but mortgage rates for a 30-year. Bank rate always has it very low. 30 years. Let's just call it 7 because it's going to keep shooting up. So let's call it 7. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So I look at 7% here, and then I put this. So this is what, 2021 or 2022. All right, let's call it 2022. Now let's look at 2023. That house at 300,000 is at 7%. That means my mortgage is just really roughly just thrown in the calculator here. That's going to bump my mortgage to basically $2,000. And because it's going to be a little higher, right? That means my mortgage just shot up by an insane, stupid amount, like insane, right? So I do a quick calculation here. 1265 divided by 1265. My mortgage just went up. And this is what people around the country are realizing. It just went up about 58.1%. Stupid, right? So if I'm a family right now in 2023 looking to buy a fix and flip, so why you guys have to understand this is you have to understand how your cash buyers are thinking, right? If I'm buying a fix and flip, if my family's budget, so if I'm a home buyer and my budget is $1,300 a month because I work a regular class job, right? Maybe I'm a teacher, firefighter, something like that. And if that is my budget, if my budget is $1,300, I can't afford a $300,000 house. And that means either prices go down, which they're not going down as insane as they are, but they still are going down. That means this same house might be worth, it doesn't go relatively, but maybe now, let's say this house is now worth $275. It's not dropping like crazy, but maybe the home values went down. Let's call it $275. It doesn't really affect it too much, but it goes now to $1,800, right? And because their interest rates are crazy, now it's at like $1,830, which is still out of range, right? So that the now cash buyers for the average FHA house and the regular home, they can't buy these type of houses for the average $1,300. That means if my budget is $1,300, I'm probably gonna have to buy a house at a lot lower price. So maybe let's do 200,000. It's like 175, right? Let's see here. If I'm at 175, no, do 190. Let's just call it 200. Screw it. All right. That means at 7%, I'm going to have to be roughly 195 on a house like this for me to hit 1,300 and for my payments, right? So if I'm at 195, What do you think if the average buyer in your market has to literally go down now? What's the price difference on this, right? I literally have to go down pretty much 30%. So that means the average home buyer doesn't want to buy on a fix and flip. If the average home buyer is trying to buy properties at 300,000, and now because of the interest rates for 2022, now for 2023, now we got to actually start buying properties at 190. So if I'm a fix and flipper, I have to go from 300,000 all the way to 190 from the average house I'm buying. And property values aren't dropping 30, 40%. That means your cash buyers are going to have to start buying properties at lower price classes. They're different houses, right? So this might be a 4.2. Now 2,000 square feet. Now my average cash buyer has to buy these 2 2s and 3 2s at like 1,200 square feet, 1,400 square feet, 1,450 square feet, right? It's just a different class of properties your cash buyers are wanting to buy, right? And this is going to change a lot in 2023. So that being said, your fix and flipper wants to get properties sold really quick. FHA loans usually, right? They want to get the most for it. And the average person getting an FHA loan at, the average income in the United States, they're going to have to go down roughly 30% to get the same type of mortgage. And property values aren't down 30%, but they have to buy properties at 30% below what they were last year. So that being said, this is why cheap properties are going to win, right? Cheap properties are going to win this in 2023 because that's where the new class of the average home owner is wanting to buy. They got to buy cheaper properties to make it work, right? And yes, property values are going down, but you got to remember that they're not going down 30% like this because of the mortgage, right? Like it's like 5, 6, 7, 8%. They're going down a little more and more and more, but just understanding that's where we're at. And then if I look at renters right now too, so if I look at rentals, the average rental is rents are going down, right? And since rents are going down, what type of properties actually are most protected from rents going down? If I have a $300,000 house, and let's say this is just rough, I'm charging $22,000 a month in rent. Just okay, right? I see properties that are 2,000 are worth 500 grand. Like some landlords are different, right? That means rent probably is going to drop down to 1,750, right, for rent. But if I have a property worth 100,000, rent's probably not going to go down that much. So if I'm renting out for 1,200, it might go down roughly 1,100, like not crazy. So rents go down less on cheaper properties, which means most of your rental people are wanting to get cheaper properties, so they're more protected against a potential recession or real estate prices going down, right? And just it's less hassle, right? So if real estate prices go down 50%, let's say in a bad scenario, rents might be going down probably 20, 25% on cheap real estate, right? And then it might be going down 30 to 40% on more expensive real estate. And so if I'm a landlord, am I going to pick something where I can lose 30 to 40%? So am I going to pick something that's going to go just down 30, 40% in value, and then rents are going to go down like 30%? That's a double whammy. No, I'm going to go properties that maybe if everything goes down 50%, the cheap real estate's probably going to go down 30%, right? Even 40, but rents they're going to just go down a lot less. So as a landlord, I'm probably going to want to get cheaper real estate, right? And this is, you look at the past the craziest real estate crashes, all the smart real estate investors went after cheaper properties, even the hedge funds. So that being said, if I look at cash buyers on fix and flips and rentals, they're going to want cheaper properties. So if I'm in a market, so I'm a regular wholesaler, right? And if I'm in Detroit, so let's use Detroit as an example, right? Let's use Wayne County. Or I'm just like a regular cash buyer, and I have my pick a litter in Detroit. Am I going to buy $200,000 houses? Or am I going to buy the really nice, reliable $45,000 ones, right? And are there $45,000 houses in Miami? No, but they're in Dayton, right? And so if I'm doing virtual wholesaling, it's like, which one should I go? Like, go after the cheaper real estate because people around the country, the hedge funds, like they're going after the cheap ones too. So just letting everybody know why cheap real estate's actually very important for wholesaling and why it's going to actually be really good for the future. And guys, I've put a lot of my rentals in cheap real estate the past 3 months. You know, I'm still buying rentals just because I like just investing my money, but a lot more in cheap real estate, right? Things that are renting less than $1,200, $1,300 a month. Like I'm putting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars into these type of rentals every single month because not every single month. I'm not dropping 100K a month in rentals yet, but working on it. But like I can tell you guys is I buy a lot of rentals. I buy a lot of other things for investments, but like if I'm putting so if I use it as a big company, you could probably say 100K, but when I'm looking at the entire like structure of rentals out here, I'm going after the cheaper ones. And if you want to be buying cheap rentals, it's going to actually give you, so I'm a cash buyer, right? So if I'm buying a ton of real estate in my local market, I'm going for the cheap ones, right? I'm not going to the most expensive ones. I'm going to look at multifamily deals, right? I'm looking at the ones I can get cheaper rents on, not the expensive ones. And this is not the time to be doing it. So just let everybody understand that too. Number 3, Macon, Georgia, right? So I talked about Macon, then I got in a little rant, right? So Macon, Georgia is a really good market. So let me pop that up. Okay. Where is it? All right. Macon, Georgia. Let's pop it up here. So Macon, Georgia is a weirder area because it doesn't have like suburbia. I don't know how to call it, suburbia or urban sprawl as other places, right? So it's a little smaller market, but it's just a very, very simple, easy market. It's kind of there, right? So like you got Warner Robins there and you got Perry, but like you don't got much, right? And then you got Valdosta is like the next one, right? So yeah, and that Valdosta is like tiny, right? And then you got Tallahassee. So how far? Yeah, Macon's actually by Columbus right here. Columbus is a lot bigger if you look at like that area, but it doesn't look as big as. So you kind of look at it from there. Columbus is still good, but the prices are not as cheap as in Macon. So Macon's not calling the middle of nowhere, but like Atlanta's still far ways from there, and Columbus is right there, right? And then you got Augusta, which is decent too. But like I'm looking at Macon, and it's a very decent market, right? And so they don't really have a military base here. Am I wrong? They might. I might be wrong on that. But you got Mercer here and you got some other decent areas. But like this is a really good market, right? So I look here on Macon. Let's look at the population of Macon. Macon, Georgia's county, Bibb County. Bibb County's got a population about 156,000, which is mostly Macon. So not that bad, right? It's not massive, like huge, massive, but still pretty good, right? So go here to Macon, Georgia, median home price. And it's just me doing deals and seeing people doing deals, right? And this might shock you. So just understand what I'm saying here. The average property Macon's 150, which seems actually very, very expensive. But let's look at relative, okay? Let's see the Georgia median home price. Let's go to Zillow. So let's understand this. When I say I'm looking for buyers to flock to areas, if I'm a buyer in Georgia, the Atlanta region, right? Am I going to go after the average home in Georgia? Which, let me show you the average home price in Georgia. The average home price in Georgia right now is $323,000. That's huge. That's a big number, right? Macon is half the median home price in the state. This is why it's a very good market. And I think it's actually going to get a lot bigger because people are going to flock to areas like that, right? And it's kind of a middle of nowhere, not too crazy place, but like you can buy properties for 40, 50, 60 grand. And they're not rougher areas, right? There are some rougher areas you probably get for 20 grand in Macon, right? But I can tell you is Macon, Georgia is a good market, right? And I think it's actually a very powerful market for a lot of people out here. And you can do very well with it. So definitely recommend Macon, Georgia on here. There we go. Yeah, it's insane. So definitely a market I recommend. Now, this is going to be one that is going to be on the contrary, right? All right, so the military base is Warner Robins, right? And Atlanta's 2 hours away, so it's harder to say if there's some cash buyers that want it, but I think most of them aren't going to be that big into it. But Atlanta's got a big population. A lot of them live in more of a sprawl outside of there. So let's talk about number two. And this is a huge one. This is one that I've talked about forever. And this is a market where I've talked about it a lot. And every single time I bring it up, everybody in that market DMs me super angry and upset that I mentioned this market. Super upset because they are in a gold mine. And I was the only person to ever talk about this market. Amazing market. Nobody ever talks about this one. Okay. And it reaches two things. It's extremely cheap for the state, number one. And it's outside of one of the most expensive markets in the entire United States where all the cash buyers flock to. Number two. So this is why it's one of the most powerful ones. All right. So let me get you hyped up for this market. Okay. And I think most people can guess what I'm talking about, but let me just get you hyped up like a guru. Number one, it's a suburb pretty much of one of the most expensive markets in the entire United States. So a lot of those really rich landlords and house flippers love this area. Number one. Number two, I think it's a really high, not high, but a very decently big population that's growing. So a lot of landlords like that. Number three, it's right by a huge military base, actually by the biggest military bases in the entire country. So there's a huge military presence, probably the biggest military presence if you can look at an area. So you got a lot of big military outside one of those expensive markets in the United States. And you got big population growth. It's an amazing market. Nobody ever talks about this. Are you ready for it? Richmond, Hampton Roads area. Now, the ARVs are a little higher than what you expect, but you got to understand the ARVs of the actual DMV area is insane. So it's actually very relatively low for what the area is. Cash buyers are tooth and nail at this area. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Richmond, Virginia. Talk about that one first. Every single person who wholesales in Richmond hates me when I mention it. They get so angry at me because it's an amazing market. And you literally have, the White House there, and you got Washington, D.C., and then you got Hampton Roads, which is a huge Norfolk area, huge military base. They do a lot of the naval stuff there. So let's talk about Virginia. So let's talk about Richmond, okay? This is Richmond, right? You got some sprawl around it, right? And you'll mention a lot of real estate influencers are from here, and they wholesale here, but they never tell you. They keep it on the DL. They keep it really on the DL that they wholesale there because they don't want you to know about it. And this is why they hate me for saying it, but it's true. It is a competitive market, but there's a ton of deals out here, and it's absolutely amazing. So let's talk about this. Let's really break this down. So this is Richmond, right? It's kind of in its own place, but it's not, if that makes sense. So you kind of look outside here. You got Norfolk, Newport News area. So this is huge military naval bases here, right? And then it's kind of decently close, not insane, but still very good. And then you got DC right here. And you got Baltimore here. A lot of cash buyers would rather be in Richmond than in Baltimore just because the values, and it's a lot harder to get good rentals and fix and flips in Baltimore than with Richmond. And there's a lot more successful wholesalers in Richmond, even though the population's a lot lower, right? And you kind of got 95 right there, yeah. And so you got 95 here. You got Washington, which is massive, right? And you got that Alexandria, very expensive market there. And then you got Richmond right here, right? And this is far enough where it's not crazy, right? So like I talk about this all the time. You got Prince George's County up here. It's just harder to do deals up here than if you're in Richmond, right? and you got Annapolis right here too. But like I can tell you is this is where the money's at, guys and gals. Okay. I just want everybody to understand this, right? This is where the money's at. So if you understand that, you'll do very well. You got this area right here, pretty much connected pretty easy. And then that'll help you out right there. So let's get the distances from everywhere else just so you understand this. Let's do Washington, D.C. from Richmond is about 2 hours, but that's traffic because it's D.C. So still, it's far enough away where it's not as crazy, but you still got the buyers from that area. And then Newport News, it is roughly an hour. So everything around an hour away is really good. So if you're in between this, it's an amazing market. And it's definitely one I highly recommend for you guys. And it's huge, right? It's kind of like, you got Appalachia to the left of it, right? You got some good markets on the outside. It's an amazing market. And the average ARV is decently high, if that makes sense too. So you look at Richmond, Virginia median home price. I call it high, but it's not too crazy. But like, what is it? 336. Not too bad because you're getting homes for 250. So the spreads are actually huge on these type of deals, and they're not as difficult as the average seller that has a home like this. So if this is in person, it's gonna be the best in-person market. Virtual, I call it 2. So I mix it up, call it 2, right? I love this market. It's definitely one you guys should be hitting up, and it's definitely one I highly recommend for you guys out here. And it's just a really good one. I love Richmond, good area for wholesaling. And let's talk about number 1. So before I break down number 1, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe. If you want to learn exactly how to wholesale in these type of markets, just go to freewholesaling.com. That's where I teach wholesaling real estate absolutely for free to help as many people learn wholesaling real estate as they can. But without further ado, I don't waste anyone's time here. Let's get into the number 1 top market for 2023. It's going to be very surprising for a lot of people, maybe not for a lot, but this is going to be Fayetteville, North Carolina. Fayetteville is aka Coal World. If J. Cole's from this area, then it's a good area. I love Fayetteville, North Carolina. And shockingly, I learned about Fayetteville, North Carolina when what was that? What was it called? 902, whatever, Forest Hill Drive, whatever J. Cole had is that album. I learned about what the Ville was. And I'm like, all right, well, I sort of knew about it, but like, it's interesting, right? But you're kind of looking at it, right? And it's like, all right, why do you keep talking about this market? And then like, you look at his family, and then I think his family was military, right? I want to get that right. And that's why he was there. And if you look at Fayetteville, North Carolina, it's got a huge military base, right? And that is exactly why he was from that area. And then you look at military bases show a lot of really good wholesaling markets, right? And so J. Cole is there because there's a good military base. And it's just kind of funny looking at there. And then you look at Fayetteville, and the population's actually pretty big, right? Fort Bragg is there. So shout out to everyone in Fort Bragg out there. Appreciate the military. But like I can tell you is I kind of learned about it from there. And then I kind of like, I knew about it, but like what, Fayetteville, like who cares about that, right? And then I started just doing wholesaling online, virtual wholesaling, and I see all these kids out here. Holy moly. They just kept going out here. It's just kept doing deals. I'm like, how are you doing these deals? You're like, it's like you're 19. You don't really know wholesaling too much, right? Guess what? I always do this when I look at a wholesaling list. I call it the kid factor and the kid star factor, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of these kids out here think they're superstars in wholesaling. And it's not because they're really good at it, but they just hit gold on their market, right? So you can be really, really bad at digging for gold. But like if you're in an area where there's gold everywhere, you're just gonna look good, right? You're gonna look amazing, right? So it's like when they have Skylar Thompson on the Dolphins. Love him. He's our third string. He looks really good when he throws to Tyreek Hill. And is it because Skylar Thompson is a really good quarterback? He's not elite. He's a rookie. No, it's because he has to stick at the best wide receiver in the entire league. He can make anyone look good. If I had Tyreek Hill as my wide receiver, he'd make me look good. Okay. I just pass him the ball for 2 yards and I'll get 100 yards and I'm like an amazing quarterback, right? No. Okay. I hit gold. I struck gold. And when you mix a really good wholesaler with a really good receiver, that's how you get really good teams in football. But like, I'm sort of looking at this and I'm like, wow, what if the average person who has average skills in wholesaling could do a really good market? And that's what I saw at Fayetteville. So let's talk about Fayetteville for a second, right? Just you have very, very, I don't know how to say this the right way, but a lot of these sellers are extremely receptive to virtual wholesaling. It's a lot easier to virtually wholesale in Fayetteville than with a lot of markets, right? So Fayetteville has a population of about 208,000. So actually the city's actually pretty good. And then you kind of look at the county here. So Cumberland County population is around 335,000, which is pretty good. They have really good population growth coming out there. So pretty good. So let's look at the Fayetteville, North Carolina median home price. So the median home price in Fayetteville is 196,000, which is decent. It's not super, super cheap, but it's actually, you still get properties for 100 grand, 120, 130 there, right? So not that insane, right? And they're not super duper duper cheap, but you still get 10, 15, $20,000 deals in here. So this is why I love Fayetteville, North Carolina, because high population, growing population, a really strong economy, and then property values are doing very well there. And then obviously make a ton of money wholesaling in that market because you got a lot of cash buyers and a strong economy there, right? So I look at this, right? And because a lot of these buyers are sometimes military families or part of the military complex they have there, right? There's a huge economy based on Fort Bragg. You sort of look at this and you're like, wow, like this market can sustain because there's a lot of military money, and everybody knows that the military doesn't care about the recession, right? They care about the country and protecting it. They're going to get their trillions of dollars in budgets, and the money's going to get flowed into that local economy, buying homes, things like that. So usually military places don't get hit as hard as like a San Francisco, right? Where a lot of it's based on the economy. The economics around it is going to affect it. Really, it's a big government type town. I don't know how to say it the right way, but it's the government jobs are really affecting it, not the economy too much. So it's going to help with other markets, right? And this is something I always say about 2023, right? If you can have that, it's a great mix. So you look at Fayetteville, North Carolina on a map, nothing too crazy. So go here. Fort Bragg is actually absolutely massive. If you actually look at Fort Bragg, like this is literally a military base. I don't know if I should show a satellite of it. I don't know if I get in trouble, but I mean, it's massive. Like it's huge, right? And then you got just Fayetteville in general, which is absolutely massive too. And you got Wade, like not too crazy around it, right? But decent area, right? There's not really much around Fayetteville though. And that's one thing I could tell you. It's kind of like a Macon, but huge, right? Got Greensboro, Winston-Salem. Like these are really huge economic markets, which are great, but like nothing crazy. And you got Wilmington there too, but like nothing insane, right? And you start looking at Fayetteville right here. It's like, that's a really good market. And like I always talk about, I've been talking about Fayetteville for 3-4 years on this channel, right? I've been talking about Fayetteville forever. A lot of wholesalers are starting to pick it up, and a lot of people who actually do wholesaling content, a lot of them are start talking about it a little more. And word's going to be out probably in a couple of years about Fayetteville. The gurus never like watching me. The gurus watch me, but they're too scared to give my information out because they want to sell it in a private course. So they'll tell you about Fayetteville in the private $10,000 course, but they won't tell us to the public until it becomes overwhelming. So it's a big secret, right? So that's why I'm trying to give you tens of thousands of dollars of information absolutely for free.